Hello and welcome to Literary Loitering. I'm Graham and today I've been joined by...
Sorry, I thought you were going to say our names.
I've been joined by no one.
No, we're here, really. We're just waiting for our names to be said because then we were going to say hello and you caught us off guard.
I thought...
No, we're rolling with it, don't worry.
Right.
I'm just waiting to see how long the awkward silence would last for.
Oh, you know I can't do awkward silences, Andrew. Yeah, that's Andrew. I'm Rob. Hello, Graham, and welcome.
Hi there, yes.
Yes,
that's a good start.
As you can hear...
Just going to move full steam ahead.
Yeah, we always do. As you can hear, we are joined by the wonderful Graham, who is formerly of Cinema Eclectica, but we're actually stealing him.
Yeah.
You know, by degrees, we're luring him with good books and interesting news articles.
A series of pages torn out one after the other, leading into a rabbit hole. Well, I can't talk about rabbit holes yet. I'm saving that.
Okay.
A teaser.
Yes, it's a teaser. So, I can't talk about vacuum cleaners. Let me rephrase that. I can't talk about vacuum cleaners. I don't know why I said avowed. I don't know what avowed means.
Is it because you've suddenly become, like, cartoonishly Transylvanian?
I think so. I think I have become cartoonishly Transylvanian. I'm not sure why.
Cartoonishly Transylvanian would be a great name for an indie record label.
Yeah. If I suddenly stop and go, one, Anyway, before we get into it, as always, Literary Loitering is part of the Geek Show podcast network, and if you like what we do have other shows. We've got Cinema Eclectica, as I mentioned. Graham is on that, and they talk about all sorts of really eccentric, really classic and foreign films. And there we also have 4Panel, which Andrew and I also do, which is all about comics and manga, and it's totally awesome. You know, it's fantastic. And we have some amazing comic books. No favoritism in there at all. No. None whatsoever. But yeah, they're all on the Geek Show podcast network, so give them a listen. And if you like what you hear and you want to show your support, then there are ways that you can make a donation on our website, thegeekshow.co.uk, or you can buy one of our lovely bits of merchandise. Our shop is also on the website. If you are interested in being on a show, or you are interested in doing some collaborative work with us, get in touch with us. There's a contact form on the website, or you can get in touch with us, studio@thegeekshow.co.uk or info@thegeekshow.co.uk, or find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, or somewhere like that. I'm done.
Okay.
Everyone just kind of
stopped. Well done, Rob.
Well, we got the blurb out the way.
It's fine. It's a good feeling to have slain the blurb.
Yes. Slaying the blurb is always a good thing. But, yeah, anyway, we're going to get right into the news, and I think Andrew is newsmaster this week.
Yes, which probably gives an indication of how horribly wrong this show is going to go.
Yes.
Okay, so I will kick things off with the news that Frederick Forsyth is going to stop writing thrillers.
Is this... are we supposed to be happy about this? Is this a finally he's retired, or is this a sad thing? I can't decide.
Well, I am fairly unfamiliar with Forsyth's work. I've seen some of the film adaptations, of course, but this is a bad start to my career on a literary podcast, isn't it?
No, it's fine.
I've seen the film. The films were good.
It's fine, don't worry. It's fine, don't worry. I think a lot of people are aware of Frederick Forsyth, but haven't actually read his books. They've just seen them in bookshops or as movie adaptations, but they haven't...
It's a little-known fact that me and Rob are actually completely illiterate.
Yes.
Don't be so hard on yourself. I wouldn't say that's little known.
Well, change of mind, it's not working out. We need him off the show.
Anyway, right. Yeah, so Frederick Forsyth, he's one of those. He's like, he's one of those ones who's been relegated to kind of summer holiday reading in Spain, you know? It's like Clive Cussler and, I don't know.
Wilbur Smith.
Yeah, Wilbur Smith, that's it. Oh, for some reason I was going to say Angus Deaton, but I'm glad I didn't.
I'd read a gritty spy thriller written by Angus Deaton.
No.
That would be an experience. I think you may be thinking of Len Dayton.
That's him. Yeah, Len Dayton.
Who did the Ipcress file.
Yeah, that's exactly who I'm thinking of. I don't know why.
Again, I'd watch, Len Dayton host Have I Got News for You?
Very good point.
There's a job swap reality show in this.
We should do this. Andrew, what do you think? We should do a job swap reality show.
What, with Angus Deaton and that other guy? The other guy whose name I have immediately forgotten.
They both end with like Deaton, Dayton, whatever. I don't care. But we take people who have like the same surname or have similar surnames and we make them swap jobs. So we need to find somebody whose surname sounds like Windsor.
Barbara Windsor. Barbara Windsor becomes part of the royal family.
Yeah, we make Barbara Windsor the Queen.
Yeah.
And then we have the Queen doing EastEnders. Work the Queen Vic. There we go. Success. It's $1 million idea.
Because one is not going to have any trouble in one's pub.
Exactly. No, in one's great-great-grandma's pub.
John Ronson becomes a globally successful DJ and Mark Ronson has to go around interviewing weirdos.
Or you could basically, you could do that. Or you could do John Ronson and Ron Swanson.
Yes.
Have to swap. Because that could be an interesting one.
We have...
Bernard Cornwell has to support an entire seaside community on his stomach. All of Cornwall has to try and write a novel.
That's hilarious.
George R.R. Martin has to produce a new album by the Beatles, while George Martin has to write the next series of Game of Thrones.
Oh God, I would pay for that.
It would work, wouldn't it? I think Game of Thrones would become much nicer as a result.
And much more psychedelic. Remember the only song that... George Martin was Sitar Hero, wasn't he?
That was George Harrison. George Martin was the producer.
Oh God, yes, George Martin was the producer. Yeah. I'm getting confused with my Georges. How dare you, Rob?
I mean, the album would obviously never come out.
Yeah. I know, because Game of Thrones, when they open it up, it'd just be musical notes. It'd just be sheet music. You'd have to play it on a piano or something like that.
500 pages of arrangements for loot.
Yes.
Well, I think that's comfortably covered up the fact that I didn't have anything to say about the actual news story.
Oh, that's what usually happens on this show. We successfully destroy news.
Yes, we do.
So, what's next, Andrew?
Okay, next we have the news that William Shakespeare was a filthy, dirty con artist.
What?
Roland Emmerich was right.
Hang on, when you say con artist, are you talking about like he plagiarized stuff, or are you talking like a proper con artist where he was conning people out of money? And
he planned elaborate casino heists.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Or it could be that the dictionaries have actually been misattributing various phrases to him.
Ah.
Which dictionaries are there? We'll go around and sort them out.
Yeah, correct them with a little marker pen.
I call it marker pen. It looks like a baseball bat, but...
It's like chin music in an old pulp novel. It's not as pretty as it sounds.
Hey, we take our literature seriously.
We're the literary governor now.
Yes. So, anyway, so how has he been conning us all? Or how have the dictionaries been conning us? I don't think it'd be Shakespeare.
According to Australian academic Dr. David McInnes, lots of phrases that the OED has attributed to Shakespeare, like "it's Greek to me" and "a wild goose chase," were probably in common use at the time.
Ah.
Actually, his reasoning makes sense, as in the plays. Obviously, a lot of people are going to have to know at least the gist of what he means.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I've always felt that about the idea that Shakespeare invented so many words. You just think, what did the people at the time think he meant? I could stand on a stage and make up words. In fact, I'm going to. But I don't expect to be thought of as the greatest playwright of my generation for it.
It's probably the lack of hair.
Yeah.
Just get some long flowing brown locks and that's it.
That's it.
He needs Apocalypse to do that. To how it should have ended reference.
Yeah, it took a minute. It took a
Yes.
minute.
It's just that last bit with Voldemort with the long flowing locks. And we shall conquer this world, one follicle at a time.
So what other credit can we steal from Shakespeare? I myself think he never actually married Anne Hathaway.
He didn't.
Because,
Because I'm going to marry Anne Hathaway.
yeah, I mean...
She is my future waifu.
She's an actress now. He's a playwright hundreds of years ago. How are we expected to believe it works?
That's the tabloid press for you.
Yeah.
Although, I think I've just got the plot for my next romantic fiction bestseller.
Oh?
Shakespeare in time-travelling love.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he wasn't... I mean, Shakespeare's brilliance is not entirely based on him being original, isn't it? Everyone knows that he rarely came up with an original plot. He just did it all better, really.
Sorry, now I've got the Bond theme tune playing in my head. Can you imagine if that was his theme tune whenever he came onto the stage at the... you know, just a harp playing, nobody does it better.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yes.
I was thinking like the da-da-da.
That also works.
Yes.
He turns to face the screen with a quill and like ink runs down. William Shakespeare licensed a quill.
Incredible pun work. A+++++.
That's genius. Oh,
So
right.
he's a fraudster, but he's also a super spy. That balances out.
Exactly.
Yes. He has nothing to declare, just a cello. So now we know what Sean Connery's next role is going to be.
Yeah.
All he needs is a Jacobean ruff and slim down a bit.
And that's why Cymbeline is completely incomprehensible. It's in code.
This might actually be true.
You don't get the chance to do Cymbeline jokes on Cinema Eclectica. You just don't.
Well...
Has that finally sold you on the show then?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why they kicked me off.
So, what have we got next, Andrew?
Okay, next up, got the news that the plans for an updated version of the famous 5 books have been cancelled after they basically flopped.
Mm.
Didn't they change the language in them?
Yep, this was a plan by, I think it's a publishing company, Hachette.
Oh, Hachette, yeah.
Yeah, Hachette. Basically decided that enough children weren't reading Enid Blyton books, and that must be because of all the old-timey language. So they tried to change things like Tinker to Traveller, Mother and Father to Mum and Dad, Awful Swatter to Bookworm, and for some reason they decided they needed to make things more gender neutral. So the character Anne now enjoys teddy bears instead of dolls.
That's not a massive improvement, isn't it? I mean, if I was a young boy who wasn't reading the famous 5 because it was full of girl stuff, I wouldn't be thinking, oh wait, she likes teddy bears instead of dolls, she's well hard now.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to make of this, except I don't understand why they thought the language was old-timey. It's not as though he was going around with these and thous and for as much as, and, you know, forswearing.
Mother and Father isn't tremendously cryptic, is it? I think, you know, even the thickest kids probably know what that means.
Well, I have friends who still refer to their parents as mother and father, but they are kind of the crust on the uppers, so...
Yeah, but you know what it means, isn't it? I mean, part of the pleasure of reading something like this when you're a kid is that it's a window into a different world, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't resemble your day-to-day reality, and you're fine with that.
And still, even then, these are books written with the intention of children understanding them.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, there's a reason why...
Anyone who thinks they need to be more simplified has not a good opinion of today's children.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like It's not like Blyton was just making up words like Shakespeare didn't, apparently.
Yeah, this is true. Not only that, I mean,
Well, yeah,
how long
he
was...
couldn't just because he was too busy living his life of international espionage.
This is true.
And
But
time travelling, yes.
the question I've got is,
God, what a...
how long was Enid Blyton kind of at the top of the children's book charts?
Ooh.
You know,
I feel it must have been a very long time.
we're talking like a couple of decades at least. You know, far
Yeah.
longer than J.K. Rowling.
Because I grew up in the 1990s,
Yeah.
and Blyton was still huge then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's kind of my point. If your author is already top of the book charts and has been top of the book charts for, let's see, we're Famous Five, 50 years?
Yeah.
Yeah? Top of the book
Yeah,
charts
I'd
say-
for 50
Yeah.
years. You don't need to change anything.
Yeah, I mean, maybe after a while sales sort of slide off, but you've already had half a century of continued massive success, so, you know, you've kind of earned your gravy.
Yeah, and it's not like they go around changing the Bible every single time the sales of the Bible start slumping, is it?
But that would be hilarious, yes.
You know,
Get,
let's update
get
the
Fred-
Bible with more street language.
Get Frederick Forsyth in, he's got some free time.
Yes, actually.
Just translate one of the Psalms to just the entirety of Gangster's Paradise.
Yeah. Yes. Oh. Now,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a much better idea than updating Enid Blyton.
now, you know Moses going to Pharaoh and saying, "Let my people go," changes to Tupac's changes. So,
The Book of Revelation will always be incomprehensible. There's
no, the
changing
Book of
that.
Revelation will be written by Snoop Dogg. We know this.
I remember in the 90s, actually, I think it was Canongate republished books of the Bible with introductions by famous writers of the day.
Yeah.
And it was quite controversial. And the Book of Revelation was introduced by Will Self,
That would have been fun.
presumably on the basis of if they can get through this, they can probably understand Revelation.
Yep. At least it wasn't William S. Burroughs who did the intro.
Hello again, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
I'd buy William S. Burroughs' update of the Famous Five as well.
You've heard the story we talked about the punk album.
Remind me of that one.
Do you remember the story as well?
was the album made of like him reading?
Oh,
Naked Lunch or something?
yeah.
Yeah. The experimental punk album. I'm looking for it.
Yeah. I've seen like a video of him online reading out Jim Morrison's poetry, and it actually sounds like poetry when William S. Burroughs reads it, because it's terrible. I mean, whatever you think of him as a rock star, he was not a poet. But put it in Burroughs' hands, and it's fine. Probably because by that stage of his life, he couldn't really understand a word Burroughs said. You're just sort of sitting there listening to him go, thinking, wow,
Yeah, but
guy can write.
they do that on, like, you know, the Big Fat Quiz of the Year when they take, like, a song by Rihanna and give Charles Dance the lyric sheet and get him to read out the lyrics, and it actually sounds like literature.
Yes. It's always been a popular thing, of course. Peter Sellers read Beatles lyrics in the style of Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was good.
Yeah. Oh, right. Shall we move on, Andrew? Is it me
Yeah, how
next?
did we get on to that, I wonder?
What were we
I
talking
think
about?
it's over to you now, Rob, for our next story.
Ah, yes. Okay. So anyway, we were trawling and trawling and trawling, and something came up. Something that usually comes up it usually comes around every so often during the year. The Oxford English Dictionary has decided to add more words to their already jam-packed dictionary. Now, Oxford, Collins, and whatever the Americans have, they're the big dictionaries, and if they say it's a word, then most people accept that it's a word and, start using it in Scrabble and stuff like that, which I hate, because I'm a traditionalist when it comes to Scrabble.
How are they going to use crying face emoji in Scrabble?
I don't know. Or maybe when they're losing, they start crying. and then just put their face on the board.
Yeah, in fairness,
Just headbutt the board until there's an indent in the shape of their face.
Yes.
I've tried to get away with dodgier stuff in Scrabble before.
The Oxford English Dictionary has been on a bit of a word addition bender. And bender is an official word in the dictionary, by the way, so I am legally allowed to use it. They have added more than 1,000 words and terms.
Wow.
Yeah. And some of the terms that they're actually adding, moobs, which is a term for unusually prominent breasts on a man.
I'm surprised it's taken this long, to be honest.
Yes.
That's very true.
Rob has his own derivation of boobs, which are called manneries. Gender fluid, which it describes a person who does not identify with a single fixed gender. I'm sorry, but if I see the term gender fluid, I'm not thinking of what gender a person is.
You're thinking somebody's gender's leaking.
Yes. I'm thinking, hang on, gender fluid? What exactly are they talking about here?
Still gender fluid people with moobs. All your Christmases have come at once.
Yes, so YOLO, because that's also in.
Oh!
Oh.
Yeah.
But it's an acronym.
Yeah, it's an acronym, but it still made it in.
So it wouldn't work in Scrabble.
Yeah, because apparently you only live once is the phrase that people say before they do something stupid or crazy, or both.
Which seems counterintuitive.
Yeah. Didn't Lonely Island do a song about that?
They did, yes.
Like, you only live once, so lock yourself in your house and board up all the windows.
Yeah. Food-related terms, chefdom and cheeseball.
Chefdom?
But please explain chefdom.
The kingdom of chefs? I don't know. a land where a chef is king?
Where is the chefdom, and why do immigrants from it come over here and take all our TV show slots?
Exactly. I'm a cheeseball.
In terms of a corny or ridiculous thing.
I don't know, it just says cheeseball.
It could just be a ball of cheese.
Yes, I was going to say, from my intense studying, I would assume it is a spherical mass of some sort of cheese-based substance.
Yes. Yoga lattes, which is yoga and Pilates.
So not a health drink, as I had assumed.
No, it's not a health drink, because it does look like that. You can just imagine it on the advert. New yoga lattes.
A woman just sort of finishes yoga exercise and turns to the camera and has a drink of a yoga latte. Yeah, I can see this now.
No, the yoga latte is what you do, is you put a latte on the base of your foot, stick it in the air, and then you have to bend your head round to drink from the latte.
It's made, I think, of a mixture of skimmed milk, coffee, and insufferable middle-class health freak self-righteousness.
Yes.
And gender fluid.
And gender fluid.
I'm curious, is the gender fluid something like Activia, with that bacteria that makes women go regularly? Is that what it is? I'm confused. Moving on, Westminster Bubble, which is 2 words, not one, and it is. And this is the brilliant description. Westminster Bubble describes an insular community of politicians.
Nice.
That is genuinely pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah. I've never seen a more accurate description of Parliament. So yeah, Roald Dahl's birth, to celebrate that, they also included a set of new and revised entries for words the author used in his writing, including Oompa Loompa, Scrumdiddlyumptious, and Human Being.
Does the entry for Oompa Loompa simply consist of a picture of Donald Trump?
Trumpa Loompa Doobity.
I can sort of see Oompa Loompa and Scrumdiddlyumptious, but much as I love Roald Dahl, Human Beings hasn't passed into that regular a usage, has it?
I honestly don't know. Most of these are odd, but I think the oddest has to come from America.
Oh,
Yeah. Now, you have to adopt a kind of strong New York or New Jersey accent for this word. Otherwise, it just does not sound right at all. Now, imagine you're in, say, The Sopranos or something like that. And
Yep, in the middle of New York.
in the middle of no. If you're posh, it's New Oik. So, yeah. Imagine you're in The Sopranos or something like that, or Scarface or whatever, and you want to say, forget about it. Now, you have to say it with that really strong New York or New Jersey accent, and it has to all be one word. And that's what's in the Oxford English Dictionary. Forget about it.
Oh, I thought it was safe from the accent.
No, you are never safe from my bad accents.
that's incredible.
It's in the dictionary now, so it's legal.
How are they spelling it?
FUHGEDDABOUDIT.
I've never spelt it with a H before. Never seen
Yeah,
it spelled
it's
with a
like
H.
FUGGED.
Me too. But, that's the official spelling now.
Yeah, that's the official
Well,
spelling.
I think I have a bone to pick with the OED now.
Well, I don't, because I'm putting that on a T-shirt and selling it. Now we know how it's actually supposed to be spelled. We can put it on a T-shirt and sell it, right? And if anyone challenges us, we can say, it's in the dictionary, go check yourself.
Oh, the fun my next game of Scrabble will contain.
Exactly. Now you know what to do with that FUGH when you get it.
It's probably slightly too many letters. You'd have to wait for someone to put down that famous and completely valid word, get about it.
Yes. Yeah.
And just add on to the beginning.
Well, you can use moobs now.
It's true.
But,
and yoga lattes.
Yeah, and
Really,
yoga
all you
lattes.
need to do is use get about it enough in conversation that it enters the popular lexicon.
True.
Eventually they'll just put it in the dictionary.
Well, I'm curious, because gender fluid isn't a term that's used regularly for it to be in the popular lexicon.
Depends on what circles you run in, I guess, and how many articles about St. Vincent you tend to read. Lots, in my case.
True. But I live in South Bank, and whenever I go to Asda, I don't hear, like, women over their groceries talking about gender fluidity.
Although, if you did, wouldn't it be a better world?
It would be. It'd be an amazing world. It's just not there yet.
What if Chaz and Gaz are just standing in the fizzy drinks aisle having a conversation about trans rights?
Yes. Now, you know when trans rights have made it when Chaz and Dave do a song about it.
That's how you know when anyone's made it, really, isn't it? I mean, they were the ones who really broke open the Goethe crisis of 73.
Yeah. And, yeah, they warned people about what shipped down, rabbit, 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 rabbit.
Yeah. The dangers of snooker loopiness.
Yes. They warned people about attacking people with cue sticks, or whatever they're called. Sticks, cues. Cues, yeah, cues. Cue sticks. They're not cue sticks, they're just cues. It's been that long since I played snooker. Yeah. All right, okay, back to you, Andrew, for the final news piece.
Yes, so I mentioned Roald Dahl a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I have another Roald Dahl story.
Yes.
Which is a new type of beer called Mr. Twit's Odious Ale.
And it's beer.
Beer. It's going to be served in a London restaurant. Get the London dinner of a production of the Twits they're going to put on.
Okay.
And it's made from yeast, which has been swabbed from Roald Dahl's special writing chair.
Hang on, what? They're using... Sorry, you're saying?
Yep, that they've swabbed up all the yeast, covered in all that tasty butt sweat and probably a little bit of gender fluid, turning it into a lovely beer.
So they're using Roald Dahl's butt yeast to make butt yeast beer and selling it.
How popular are they expecting this to be?
I assume completely sold out.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to drink Roald Dahl's
This
acid
is actually
water?
a safety warning. Anyone in London, be prepared for the mass riots that will inevitably break out when members of the population don't get their butt beer.
Oh man, it'll be like pumpkin spice lattes all over again. Shoreditch was in flames.
That's what caused the riots, wasn't it?
Yes.
We know the truth now.
All those poor yoga lattes instructors that didn't make it out.
Do you know, I've tried yoga and I've tried Pilates, and for the life of me, I cannot understand why anybody would want to combine the two.
Because you didn't like either, or because they're so wonderful that you wouldn't want to adulterate the taste?
No, it's just combining the two seems more like, you know, the rack that they used to use in medieval times, and the other things that you found gracing a medieval torturer's special little dungeon. Yes. Combining the two would be more like that. In which case, why not just take yourself down to certain areas of whatever town you're living in, you know, and for a small fee, you can find a good man or woman who will happily take care of those needs for you.
Yeah.
Well, that's a happy ending then, because now it turns out all the yoga lattes instructors weren't massacred in the Great Pumpkin Spice Latte riots. They've just gone to Guantanamo Bay as instructors.
Or they found the nearest, the nearest rope and leather store.
Maybe Islington is just one enormous torture chamber.
It is. I've been through there regularly. It is. It totally is.
All those people happily enjoying their yoga lattes and butter-flavoured beer. They don't know.
Oh no, Islington is nowhere near as bad as Camden for that.
Right, I'm out of date on my London stereotypes.
No, Camden's where all the, because, you know, Camden Market?
Yeah.
Everybody goes to Camden Market these days. And you have all of the beautiful people turning up, and they've all got their yoga lattes, sweaters on, and everything like that. And they go around buying all the cheap clothes, the cheap knockoff clothes that I might add you don't find in the normal shops, because these are clothes that are imported direct from the countries where they make the clothes for the big brands. So yeah, Camden Market's a nice place, but you wouldn't want to live there.
No.
Not in the market itself. Maybe somewhere else in Camden.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually want to live underneath the market stall. I've got to admit, I would think that my life was going in the wrong direction if that happened. Yeah,
I've seen the after party, as I call it, after they tidy up Camden Market and everyone packs up, and sometimes you just see some random guy just wandering around poking into empty boxes and stuff like that, and he looks a bit like Stig of the Dump as he's wandering just looking for any loose bits that he can nick. How do we get onto that anyway?
Nobody knows.
Back to Roald Dahl's but East beer.
I mean, I think I have said all I can on the topic.
I don't really know what to say about the topic. I think that's why we tangented hard, because we're not sure what to say about it.
Even when I was a very young child and I was obsessed with everything Roald Dahl based,
you drew the line at that.
I would have balked at the idea of a beer made from his butt yeast.
Can you imagine if they're trying it? It's tasted a bit earthy.
What if it makes
surely tastes a bit peachy.
Oh, good one. A bit of Grandma's peach tea. Sorry, you were saying?
What if it makes you as good a writer as him? Would it be worth the disgust of drinking it?
They'd bottle that and sell it, and you'd have people like Stephanie Meyer buying it.
I would say no, then it's not worth it.
No, it's not. Because then...
Because surely if everyone can write like Roald Dahl, then your amazing Roald Dahl-esque novel is just some derivative knockoff.
Although, if Roald Dahl did Twilight, that would have been interesting. Because sure as hell, Bella would have been not in there in the first place.
Mm.
already got
Hell of a lot
vampires
more.
and werewolves. Why do I need a love interest?
Hell of a lot more people would have died in it.
Yeah, just a random BFG
Jacob
in the
probably would have
background.
had a lot more fleas.
Yeah. Yes, he would actually. Can you imagine if in every scene in the movie he was just scratching himself randomly? Oh, so I think we need to take a quick break there, and we'll be back in a moment.
The world of comics and manga are much, much more complex than I'll ever know. So tune in to 4Panel on the Geek Show Podcast Network to make that whole world a little less intimidating.
Welcome back, and now it's time for some books, and we've all got books this week.
Indeed.
It's great. So we're going to start off with Andrew. What have you got for us,
Yes,
Andrew?
that's who I am.
Yes, that's who you are.
So I've been reading A Study in Sable by Mercedes Lackey, which is part of the Elemental Masters series.
Okay.
So the book follows two characters, Psychic Nan Killian and Medium Sarah Lyon White, with their pet birds Neville the Raven and Grey the Parrot, who basically work for John Watson,
Okay.
him what does the stuff with the Sherlock Holmes,
Hmm.
to solve occult mysteries. The
Okay.
basic idea is that some of the times when a person comes in with a case for Sherlock Holmes and he dismisses it as being nonsense, it's actually because there's something magical afoot. And so they're the girls it kind of gets bumped up to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only an interesting premise. But I think the big thing I want to address before I go into the book proper is that, like I said, this is part of the Elemental Masters series. And this is, I think, the 11th book in it. The 11th book of a series which I've read none of the books.
Ah. So,
So I did have a considerable problem with just how laden in continuity it is.
Hmm.
okay.
But that being said, I think there were still a few things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So, first thing is, like I said, continuity, not a thing that I understand. But even then, I think it kind of works against the book a little bit in places.
Hmm.
Because it's almost like, I think, dragged down by the continuity is the term I would use.
Okay.
It seems like a lot of scenes, they lose just all sense of pace. Because the book has to stop and kind of explain what, like, 70 different things are and how the characters have interacted with them beforehand.
Hmm.
And this gets combined with, it's actually a trait we've seen in a lot of books, just describing absolutely everything. So the characters will enter a room and all the furniture down to the very last detail will be described.
Hmm.
Like every single scene they're in.
Okay.
And it just makes it very slow paced. Like, I think the best example I've seen of this is there's a bit where both the girls are about to go meet an opera singer at her hotel. So they're getting all dressed up in fancy gowns and what such. Then they go to the hotel, and then you get like another paragraph explaining how this was the hotel where all the fancy people hang out, and so they had to wear the fancy dresses. But you don't need that, because you can infer from the fact that they're wearing fancy ball gowns, it's a swanky place.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need an extra paragraph explaining all that.
I see where you're getting with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, just it can make it a tough read in places.
So is it being purposefully overly descriptive all the time, or is it just in places?
Well, see, I think it fits all the time. It kind of fits some of the time because, like, it's kind of tied in a bit with the Sherlock Holmes mythos,
Yeah.
and so it kind of works with the idea that the characters are very analytic about things.
Yeah.
So obviously they're taking in all the details of someone, but like I said, I think there are places when it doesn't really fit in.
Okay.
And the other big complaint I had was kind of the Sherlock Holmes characters themselves.
Hmm.
I think with a book like this, there's kind of two ways you can do it. Either it's straight up, it's these characters team up with Sherlock Holmes to solve a mystery, or you have Sherlock Holmes like very briefly appear as sort of the guy who gives them a mystery or something, and then it spins off its own direction. But this kind of tries to take like an awkward middle ground.
Okay.
So you've got Sherlock Holmes himself who'll just like come out of nowhere into a scene and just be like, "Hi, I'm still in this book," and then disappear again. Meanwhile, they spend a lot of time working with John and Mary Watson, and John and Mary Watson are both wizards.
Sorry, what?
That they can do magic.
They can do magic.
Yeah.
I thought he was a
That's
doctor.
Yeah, he is a doctor who does magic as well.
Okay.
And it's one of those things, well, basically what you've done is you've written a completely different character.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too big a change. Like, I can't go back and reread all the old Sherlock Holmes stories and go, oh yes, the idea of John Watson being a wizard seamlessly fits in between the lines.
I don't know what to say to this.
But that being said, I think it's still quite an enjoyable book.
Okay.
The characters themselves are pretty likable. They're very much like Isabella Trent in that very kind of sensible-minded, practical, willing to do what needs to be done mentality.
I like that.
Yeah, I think we have definitely stated that we like that in the past.
Yep.
And the other thing, despite not appearing very much, Mercedes Lackey does write a very good Sherlock Holmes. Like, there's a scene at the start of the book where Nan and Sarah meet him for the first time, and him being like a skeptic on all things mystical, Nan needs to prove that she can read his mind.
All right.
So she's kind of coming up with all these details that she's reading from his mind. But then he's saying, oh, well, obviously seen the letter on my desk and read it from that.
Okay, yeah.
It's this really neat scene of him trying to explain away all the occult things that happen.
Yeah, I'd like to see Benedict Cumberbatch try that.
It's a very kind of open-minded skepticism. Like, once she does eventually pull out some personal details that she couldn't possibly have found from, things in the apartment, it's like very willing to be like, yes, okay, obviously you do have these powers. Now I've learned a new thing, okay, cool, moving on.
Excellent.
Yeah, and the central mystery itself, it's pretty fun. It's got weird stuff like there's an opera singer and a violinist who can summon ghosts from his violin. I mean, yes, it was a book that I really wanted to like, because the mistakes it's made, I've read other things that have done similar things,
Yeah.
and kind of thrown away the book somewhat spitefully, with maybe a scornful bit of, how dare you be such a thing that I can't say it because we're not allowed to use swears. But this, with Everbridge, like, I'm rooting for the book.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, come on, book, you can do it. You can make me like you.
Come on, little book.
And, I mean, like I said at the start, so, 70% of why I didn't enjoy the book is because I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems with coming into a series where it's all connected and you have this history behind it. Thankfully...
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem, but I couldn't truthfully say it's a criticism.
Thankfully, we don't get a lot of books that are kind of in the middle of a series or towards the end of a series. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think it is a bit of a missed opportunity.
It is. It is.
Because I think with the featuring Sherlock Holmes, it's probably going to draw at least a few new fans to it.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be turned off like I was.
I mean, I think with the fact that it's trying to draw on books that have been before, I think that's something that maybe Mercedes Lackey could have kind of put to one side, because if you read the Sherlock Holmes books, there's very few of them that refer to previous Holmes adventures. You could pick up...
But I think reading it, I was thinking a lot of it doesn't seem like it necessarily needs to be... Well, I don't know. Reading it, kind of, sometimes it feels like there's two books in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's a part 11 to the Elemental Masters series, and, a Sherlock Holmes-esque occult detective story
Okay.
that would work as its own standalone book.
All right. Okay.
That's pretty much all I have to say on the matter.
Okay. Moving on to me then, and I think I got the best of the bargain this time around, because obviously I got the Pratchett, and you guys know how much I love
you
Pratchett.
say you got the Pratchett. You said, I'm taking the Pratchett and threw these books at us.
I don't know how
It's
to
fair,
respond.
Rob.
It is.
You know it's fair.
I know it's a fair comment. I just tried to think. My brain was going, how do I reply to this?
You throw up your hands and say, it's a fair cop, Gov.
Sorry, what was that?
All you can do is throw up your hands and yell, it's a fair cop, Gov.
It's a fair cop, Gov. Right, okay. Terry Pratchett, or as it's advertised on the book, the fantastically funny Terry Pratchett, and the book is called The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner and Other Stories. Now, interesting thing about this book, right? I think it's sold a lot as audiobooks that people play for their kids in the car. Because it's got all of these stories weren't written by Pratchett as an adult or, towards the end of his life. They were edited towards the end of his life and put together, and he even wrote an introductory piece. But almost all these stories were written when he was a junior reporter around the late teens, so 17 to 19 years old he was when he wrote these stories. And some of them are really interesting. Some of them are, you can see what they developed into. I mean, one of them developed into truckers. And, you can see the seeds of some of his other work in some of these stories. This is the second collection of short stories. The first one was The Dragons of Crumbling Castle. And, I mean, there's several stories in here. The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner is funny. It's very, very British. And the weird thing is, when I was reading it, I was getting shades of Good Omens from it, because it had a very British take on the whole idea of the witch. You have like a stage wizard, and him and his daughter, they live alone, and his wife passed away years ago, and he does like children's parties. He loves parties because it means work, and normally he works in a factory, but he does the stage magician bit as well. It's all sleight of hand, but one day he knocks over a vacuum cleaner that was leaned against his car, and turns out that the vacuum cleaner was owned by the local witch, who doesn't look like the local witch. And those kneely things in the church, when you kneel down, those cushion things, she knitted all those for the church, and she's in the church choir and stuff like that. So they can't get the vicar involved because he wouldn't believe she was a witch as well. So it's all very, very British. And so there's that one. There's the Great Train Robbery, which is, I have to read the beginning bit of the Great Train Robbery to you, right? Because it gives you an idea how in his late teens, just how talented Pratchett actually was. I dare say you all know about the Wild West, but what many people don't know is that there were two Wild Wests, and the wilder one by far was in Britain. Of course, this rough, tough, rip-roaring, gunslinging place I'm referring to is Wales, and to prove it, here is the story of Police Constable Bryn Bunyan, the fastest truncheon west of the River Severn. The thing is, it opens up as a typical kind of Western. The town of, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it. And it's got a little asterisk next to it. It says, anyone looking for it on a map needed very good eyesight as to fit the name on, meant it had to be printed in very tiny letters, right? So the town of blah blah blah, I'm going to call it from now on because I can't say it, was very small and hardly on the map at all, until the Great Coal Rush of 81. No sooner had an old prospector come running down the high street with a lump of coal in his hands, shouting, "Coal! It's coal! There's coal in them there hills! Look you!" than the town was packed with people eager to strike their claim. Soon it had 3 pubs, a billiard hall, and a brand new temperance hotel. And every night there were fights between the sheep boys, like cowboys, only this is Wales, and the prospectors. Soon the place became known as the toughest town in the West, and so it remained for nigh on 100 years. Then one day, with the sunlight glinting on the silver star on his helmet, a tall figure in blue pedalled down the high street of Llandan. Llandanf, sorry. The people in the public bar of the Lump of Cork peered round the door as the stranger dismounted and tied his bike up outside the old police station. "It's a policeman," hissed Davies the poacher, gulping down his beer and hurrying off to hide his ferrets. Putting them down his trousers didn't seem like a very good idea. And
That is very Terry Pratchett.
it is. And the thing is, they've got the main bad guy in this is called Di Evans, right? In that story, he's called Di Evans, and they got a little footnote. You know, he was the son of Di Horribly, who lived up to his name, and whose brother was called Di Two, who was trying hard not to live up to his.
That's wonderful.
So it's got that Pratchettness about it, and I've got to say it's a kid's book through and through. But there's a when you get that Pratchettness that just you find so appealing, and you find it in The Wee Free Men, and you find it in The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, and you find it in stuff, even in random stuff that Pratchett did as a throwaway thing, like Where's My Cow? There's that essential Pratchettness in this. There's a great story in this about a rebel ant, right? And it's called An Ant Called 4179003. It's about an ant that decides to rebel. Lord Cake and the Battle for Banwen's Beacon was a good one. And all of these are really good, fun stories. And the weird thing is, you could go through this book. I read through the entire book twice in the space of about 4 days. And I had 2 days break in between reading it. So I read through the book in 1 day, then took 2 days off, then read through it again because I enjoyed it so much. And that essential Pratchettness is there. The language, obviously, isn't as high a standard as Pratchett became later on, because this was written still during his early career, before he was actually established as a proper writer and, as an author in his own right. This was before Colour of Magic, it was before Truckers, it was before all, Dark Side of the Sun, various things like that. And there's something, it's weird, but there's something very, very Roald Dahl about it as well. There's a very, very strong Roald Dahl atmosphere to a lot of the stories. The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner obviously has it, but all the other stories as well, they have this. And I know that Roald Dahl was one of Pratchett's heroes. I know that he was one of Pratchett's literary icons, so he was obviously influenced a lot, and you don't really see that much in Pratchett's later work. But here in this, and the same as in Dragons of Crumbling Castle, you actually see the influence of Roald Dahl very, very clearly in his early work. The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner, I think it's, if you've got kids, right, and you want something easy to read to them, and get this, seriously, or if you are a kid at heart, and you want something more Pratchett to read, and you want to know more of how he wrote during his early career, then get this. And if you're just a terminal Pratchett fan like me, then you owe it to yourself to get this.
Quality.
Yes. So, over to you then, Graham.
Yeah, so for my first book, there was one that I was particularly interested to get after, of course, Robert Elwood was all out of the way to get the Pratchett, obviously. And that was Alice by Christina Henry. And this is a horror novel, a dark fantasy novel, essentially, inspired by Lewis Carroll's Alice novels. It has a quote on the back, which I think is... I assume they mean it as a compliment, but if I had just written a novel based on Alice in Wonderland and someone had said it was a world that is nothing like Lewis Carroll ever imagined...
That's a hell of a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, I'd have to think very hard about whether that was meant positively or not. So I got into it, and I am a bit of a Carroll obsessive, and I do have a high standard for derivative and inspired work, largely because I think what I found really thrilling about Alice in Wonderland as a child, and still do, is how anarchic and uncontained it feels. And I become frustrated when certain people, I can't say exactly who, but certain Tim Burtons find the need to bolt it to a very rote kind of fantasy chosen one plot.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, it just seems so counter to the spirit of the work to me. But, people like their characters to have arcs and backstories these days. The pleasure of pure nonsense is not a pleasure that many people really share now.
Unless they're a Pratchett fan.
Yes, yeah, that's true. As I started to read Christina Henry's book, I got nervous when at the start people are talking about the Jabberwock as a kind of villain in the shadows, a big bad. I started to get those uncomfortable Burton flashbacks.
Yeah.
As I read on, it started to reassure me, and I think to explain what I liked about this book, I think it's firstly important to reveal what it's not. What it's not is a book that wants to be in any way in continuity with Cavill's original story. It appears to have a loosely Victorian setting, but the mechanics of its fantasy world are Henry's own. It begins with a woman called Alice. Whether she is Cavill's Alice or not is left entirely up to the reader, in an asylum, talking through a sort of rabbit hole-like gap in the wall with a fellow called Hatcher, who is another inmate. They escape when the asylum catches fire, and they go on an adventure through Old City, a loosely sort of 19th century London-esque fantasy world where the underclass who've been kept out of New City, of course, ascend. I was wondering, since at the start of the book it gives fairly heavy hints that this Alice is a rape survivor, I was wondering whether it was going to go the route of having the Wonderland story be a fiction she makes up in order to protect herself psychologically, particularly when she starts referring to her attacker as the rabbit.
Yeah.
It's not quite that, and it plays its fantasy elements quite close to its chest for a long while. You are just shy of halfway through the novel when the first unambiguously magical thing happens. The first thing that can't just be explained as a sort of shared fantasy of Alice and Hatcher. And I found that quite refreshing. And I thought one of the main strengths of Christina Henry's books is that she gets bored of her own ideas before the reader has a chance to. So this factor of the Jabberwock being the main villain, which I had been apprehensive about, is left to simmer in the background for a long while as a series of crime bosses with Carolian but not implausible sort of nicknames like the Walrus and the Caterpillar become secondary villains who Alice has to get past. And while those are the overt references, there are a lot of much more subtle in it that I really enjoyed. Part of the detail of how Newtown and Old Town works is that the rulers of Newtown, the elites who live there, pacify the people of Old City rather, by giving them all a gift. Everyone in Old City gets a gift once a year, and nobody comes out and says the quote, "Everybody has won and all must have prizes." But I think if you know your Cavill, you can see that the dodo was obviously the inspiration for this plot detail. That's also a rather savvy political point, and I think the novel treats its more real-world issues with a dignity and a clear-eyedness that I wasn't expecting from something that, let's face it, doesn't have to have that. Henry's book doesn't have to have a genuine anger about victims of organised crime and sex trafficking. It doesn't have to have a class consciousness. It doesn't really have to treat its horrors as anything other than exploitation pulp for the book to work. But it does have that extra dimension. It does have a kind of honesty and integrity to it that I thought lifted it. And it does, as I say, treat its source material with a bit more imagination than isn't expected. It doesn't feel the need to make everything in the book have a Carol parallel, but it does have a lot of those. Some of them are obvious, some of them are very sneaky and clever. And more than anything, it is written in a very pacey, no-frills style that I found really quite compulsive. It works well as a kind of adventure novel, even though that's not strictly its genre.
Okay.
So it was a really nice surprise, I thought. She has published what I assume is a sequel, The Red Queen, and I'd like to read it, although another sort of point in its favour, I would say, is that while it does leave a couple of loose ends dangling for that sequel, I didn't feel like, I'd been reading a trailer by the end. I think the major plot details are wrapped up satisfyingly. The treatment of magic, which is used as a sort of currency and a method of control by the people of New City, also has an authentically folkloric sense of weirdness and uncontrollability when Alice uses it. And I think, even though, as I say, its central conceit of turning the Alice novels into something that is part of a hero's journey and is part of a more orthodox plot is something that I think misses the central appeal of those books for me. I must say, if we are going to have Hero's Journey Alice books, I'm perfectly happy with them being this enjoyable.
Excellent. Wow. I didn't think you'd like it that much. I was a bit worried, I'll be honest.
Yeah, like I say, it is something that I normally find pretty irksome.
Yeah.
But Henry is just such a pacey writer that I found the book really enjoyable to get through.
Fantastic. Andrew?
Yes?
Do you think I should... We've already covered it. Do you think I should give Graham some pleasure reading material?
I think that very much depends on what you mean.
A Natural History of Dragons.
Ah, yes. Of course, I've heard you talk about this a lot on the show before.
Yeah.
Not Rob's special sausage catalogue.
No, because almost bow before the Isabella Trent.
She does sound amazing.
She is amazing. She's like Indiana Jones and what did I describe her as? She's like Charles Darwin, Indiana Jones, and Lara Croft all rolled into one.
Yeah, that's it. I think at this point she's basically the honorary fourth member of the podcast.
Yeah. And we want to meet her so we can sit down and have tea and cake and listen to her amazing stories. Her and Lady Mechanica. I think that would be a good tea party.
I don't know the second one.
Lady Mechanica's...
No, this is only something Rob knows.
She's basically a Victorian lady who is... she's basically an android in Victorian London.
Oh yeah, I'm on Google now. It's bringing it up.
Yeah, and maybe have Elsa Bloodstone from Next Wave in there as well.
Because she is exceptional.
Yeah, and the bit I was talking to you about before in A Force actually includes Elsa Bloodstone as well.
Do you like Elsa Bloodstone?
Yes. So anyway, before we do anything else, let's end the show. Because I realised we haven't actually ended the show.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're still in the show.
So we are at the end of the show. You can listen to all the shows on Mixcloud and very soon iTunes and also on YouTube as well. And until next week, I've been Rob.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Andrew.
We'll see you all next week.
Thanks for listening.